Hey, what's up? I'm Dap1, representing Mogutta Team, Dead Squad. Normally, you know me as a graffiti artist, but today we are going to tap into Dallas history of b-boying. There's a huge gap between the 80s and the 90s, so today we're here to talk about that. I want to welcome first, he is my mentor, one of the dopest b-boys in Dallas. Kid Kaos to the stage.
What's up, man? All right.
Okay.
Scotch. I'm waiting for the music, yo.
Okay. And now we have another b-boy. He goes by Drew, the one-man crew. Drew Loner.
Word him up.
Please come to the stage.
The homie. You gotta rock that. Dude, Rick, good to see you. Likewise, brother. Always good to see you.
OG.
Always good to see you.
OG. Word him up, Doc.
Okay, we're gonna start from the beginning. Okay, so we're gonna start from the beginning. So tell us, where are you from, Drew? Like originally
I claim,
from?
basically, I was raised in LA. I was born in Houston, but as a baby moved to LA.
Okay.
Raised
What
in
about
LA.
what about you, Rick? Where are you originally from?
Originally from Chicago, but raised here. Moved since I was 2-3 years old. So raised in Dallas.
Okay. What was it like growing up in LA, Drew?
Shit, LA, the 80s? Oh, that's when it was happening. 82? Everybody at every school in LA was breaking into hip hop. And I was this little wild kid bouncing off the walls. The older kids took me under their wing, showed me some centipedes and windmills, and I'm still doing it today.
Okay. What about you, Rick? What was it like growing up for you?
Growing up, poor. Grew up in PG, but back then in the 80s, early 90s, we're always outside. When it came to hip hop and when hip hop was just growing, we were always stuck. Our ears were stuck to the streets, man, and music wise, and luckily I had my mentor, my older brother, Alvaro, may he rest in peace.
Nice.
He's the reason why we didn't stray into gangs or anything like that, and we stuck to the music. Because at first, that's what we were in touch with, the music, and after that it was history. After that, right, we started dancing.
It was the birth of a movement.
Exactly. And after that, once we started, what the culture was becoming, we had to stick with it. Yeah.
Okay. When did you first start seeing breakdancing, the art of b-boying, Rick?
Well, here growing up in Dallas, it was very few people that were already doing it. So it was me, Nelson Barbosa, Mike Diaz, and when we got in touch with Drew, he was already ahead of the curve. I'm like, dude, and then I think the Mike Diaz had an older brother in Houston, so we would go to Houston and watch those guys. I was like, oh shit, we just found out that they were like years ahead of Dallas. And so we came back and took the little bit of b-boying that we knew and just sprouted and practiced and just came back here with, just practiced all the freaking time.
These kids were
So-
ruthless.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like Beach Street or anything like that?
What do you mean a big street?
Like that you wasn't seeing Beach Street for like the first time? That wasn't like the first time you noticed like b-boying or anything?
Oh, you're talking about like what I saw it on on TV first.
Yes.
I did. Yeah, you could say that, but it's not like that. That was like our go-to. Back then before internet and this and that, that was the only outlet, I guess. Is what I'm trying to say. As far as seeing one on TV, Beach Street, yeah, that was major because to this day my mom would catch me just rewinding the battle between Rocksteady and New York City.
How old were you when you saw Breaking 1 and 2 Electric Boogaloo?
That was before, dude.
Yeah, that was some early ass shit.
Yeah.
I'm guessing,
Okay.
and I'd just be guessing because of your brother's older influence and
Yeah.
the circle of cats that these were real hip hop heads.
Yeah.
So you were probably introduced to it by proxy of the people around you as opposed to catching a video.
Right,
and being
right,
like,
yeah.
what is that?
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, what about you, Drew? When was the first time you started seeing breakdancing, the art of b-boying?
I was like 6 years old. You gotta understand, I'm almost 50. So the 80s, I was born in the 70s. So the 80s was my era.
Yeah.
So I was a little kid right in the middle of LA, North Hollywood High, where Carlos Santana and my dad were in a band together. North Hollywood, yeah, like I said, all the kids in the park. I mean, I wish I knew about Little Caesar and animation across town, man. They were Oz Rock, like they were fucking killing it. And I wish I knew about them.
I mean, but it was like the birth of, you know, like we caught here in Dallas, we caught the second wave, you know, which was like the mid 90s, the early 90s, 94, 98, when we started like getting really like into it. Like I would have to tell my mom to drop me off early to school in Skyline just to go practice, and we used to wear our Adidas sweats underneath our Jinkos. That's yeah. And so first period, we just like dripping sweat. I'm like, why is it so sweaty? Because we just practiced for an hour.
Okay, that's why we're here. Okay, we're here to fill in the gap between Dallas b-boy scene. So we know Dallas b-boys from the '80s. It was guys like the Boxhead and the West Dallas Rockets. And I also did some research, and I found out that there was another crew called the Space Cadets. Was there any other b-boys in Dallas that you know of in the 80s?
Yes, and I have that stuff written down. I have a couple of their numbers, and I need a little time to get that together. But off the top, I wasn't here in the 80s, so I'm going off of the interviews that I did of Marty Kudelka, Keeley, Teresa Espinoza, who were here in the early 90s doing the hip-hop dance. I need to say something to kind of clarify from the beginning. All right, so Dallas has more than one lineage of histories. So I see the older heads, their lineage was from, you know, stems back to the late 80s. So okay, let me start from the beginning. So in the 80s, there were breakers, right? And there were younger kids from Garland, like Keeley and Marty Kudelka, Teresa Espinoza, that were dancing in the late 80s, who it was passed on to them from the cats from the 80s. It was passed on to them. And then they were dancing in late 80s into the early 90s. Okay, they were from that lineage from the 80s. Now, the kids from Pleasant Grove and Arlington, when I came here at the end of 95, December, January was when the Emotions opened up.
Yeah. 94, 95, 98 era. So, yeah, 94, 98.
That would have been 96.
Yeah.
January 96 to October, Emotions was open.
Yeah.
That generation, that group, has its own history. It spontaneously combusted amongst the youth, these guys. Yeah. And so there's the second lineage. Now you have Down to Rock, which originates from Chicago. And one of the members came down here, it was Danny or Paul's uncle, came down here in the 80s and got permission. Yeah, he got permission to start a chapter here, and that was in the 80s. See. And there was a lull in the 90s, and then Paul and Oak Cliff crew, some of those kids, they revived it. Yeah. So 96 from January to June-ish. In that span of time, these kids went from not knowing any moves. Early in January, there were 3 people that could windmill, and like the bad windmill. Yeah. Antonio from Eternal Posse. He was one of the cats that knew how to windmill. Relative.
Can't forget about
but
Ralph Garcia.
In that span of like 3 to 6 months, Dallas, that youth and breaking and hip hop exploded, and these kids went from not knowing anything to fucking air flares by June.
Okay, so basically you're saying when you first came to Dallas, there was basically 3 crews, which was Suicide Tribe, Assassin, and Eternal Posses at the beginning?
They were the first three of the youth generation from Latin freestyle. But there was an older crew in Arlington area. It was rock. I don't think it was
Down Rock.
Was it Rock Solid?
Rock Solid.
Wait.
Because
What's the crew? What's the crew now that everybody's in?
Down Rock.
No, what's the crew that everybody's in here?
Oh, Rock Solid.
It is Rock Solid.
Yeah.
Now, Rock Solid was a combination of two different crews.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
Down Rock and whatever solid.
So, Chester. No, Chester was from Oklahoma. No, Vu, Omar, and Victor, Vincent. Vu, Omar, Vincent were older heads, the same age as IC Crew, and they were true b-boys. They were like hip-hop b-boys, not Latin freestyle. They were a lot like IC, but they were in Arlington. But I met them at Emotions, so they were going to Emotions too.
Yeah.
Omar, you know Omar,
Yeah.
he was a judge at the last Elements Jam.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a question. So, when was Suicide Tribe formed, and what year was that, and who were some of the members that was down with it?
Suicide was Nelson Barbosa, Mike Diaz, myself, and I want to say Ralph Garcia. Ralph Garcia, he was remember white complected. I still keep in touch with him. He was the when the Emotions battle, the $1,000 battle that we never heard of winning $1,000.
Yeah,
that was.
who got the money?
What's his face? Antonio won it, but there was Checo's neck of the woods. Yeah, it was a 1-on-1. Yeah, and it was the final was Ralph against Antonio. Yeah.
Okay, was that a Pleasant Grove crew?
Yes. Yeah, dude. It was all. Yeah. We Nelson lived right here. I lived right here on Alhambra. Mike was not even 2-3 blocks from here. And if you don't know, we're in Pleasant Grove. But yeah, it's and then after that, it was just whoever was around the neighborhood and wanted to fucking be down and just practice, and that's we didn't take it too hard. Oh, we're gonna make something, and we're gonna make money. And nah, we did it for the love of the culture. And then having my older brother carry, he was 3 years older. He used to drive and have us roll up the linoleum and take it to Crawford Park and just fucking jam out. Yeah, so.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
Did y'all have any signature moves? I heard something about the suicide move.
That was already no. We didn't not make that up.
How'd you come up with the name Suicide? Do you know?
I think Mike plastered it, or he's like, man, suicide.
And what was the deal with Assassins? Because there was Suicide and Assassins were the same. Are you getting there?
Who was your biggest rivalry back then?
I would say Assassins. Yeah, because it was the same neighborhood. I wish Eric was here. He could confirm that. He was supposed to be here, but Nemo, yeah. And then now we're all homies, but that's the way it starts, man. And it was a good type of rivalry. We didn't want to stab nobody.
Back then, you needed somebody. You needed somebody to call the enemy so that you could brush up on your stuff and be sharp in the battle. And it was like we looked for the people we supposedly didn't like because we wanted to battle, but when they didn't show up, we were disappointed.
Yeah. And then back then, this is all before internet, so we had either fucking flyers right here, and a word of mouth, or then and then we said beavers. Yeah, so that's it's of course showing our age, but back then it was quinceañeras, weddings, wherever we could have music, and on top of that, we had a lot of homies that were DJs. So they would tell us, oh, we're gonna DJ this quinceañera, and such is gonna be there. We're like, oh yeah, let the Assassin guys know. And so that's how it came about. But yeah, you could say Assassins was one of our top rivals, because 1, we're hungry, 2, we're young, and 3, we're all about dancing.
4, you're in the same territory.
In the same territory, so we try to claim,
this town ain't big enough for the both of us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. When did Assassin come into the picture? Like what year?
Within the first couple of years, I want to say 95, 96. Yeah, because like I said, like Drew was saying, like that wave or that lineage. Assassin, Suicide, the guys from Arlington, Eternal Posse, and this and that. That was like the first wave. Then we gathered,
they were the first.
And then when Rudy and all the Oak Cliff homies, all those guys ran. Then I had pick and choose. By the time I started IC, I was like, man, I want this guy, So like, I was like nitpicking like all the homies that, first of all, they were homies. I didn't see him as I gotta get this guy, the best guy from this crew. We're homies. You got along, me and Ron were like, yeah, exactly. And so, but that was the later version, you know, like it's almost like just another ripple of the first wave when it came to like IC.
Okay, who were some of the members of Assassin?
It was Nemo, Bush Baby, Daniel Lopez.
Well, the leaders were Daniel and Raphael of Assassin's crew, and Silverio, my cousin, who brought me into the crew.
Yeah.
And I was oblivious. I didn't know what was going on in Dallas because I just got here. And they were already pushing me. They were pushing me into the circle to battle you guys, suicide.
Eric Rodriguez, Nemo. Yeah.
There were some cats from when we battled at Emotions that day when y'all were suicide. Yeah. Some of the ones who went to and became United B-Boys.
Wait, we're gonna get there.
They had a chip on their shoulder for me to this day.
We're gonna get there. Okay, so where were some of the places y'all practice or some of the facilities?
Skyline High School. What is it?
Pleasant Oaks.
Pleasant Oaks Recreation Center. Sometimes the ROC when somebody had a car. Over there in what is it? Garland? Yeah.
ROC.
Yeah. Yep. The ROC. But the majority, the beginning was our homes. Nelson's house, my house.
Yeah, I remember.
My parents to this day claim that we messed up our kitchen floor and had to repair.
Right, sneaker scuffs on the ground.
Yeah.
I got something to say about that.
Yeah.
Was there any other crews in '96 besides Assassin and Suicide?
No, the Eternal Posse out in Arlington. Those are the first three crews in terms of who were representing.
Okay, let's talk about Eternal Posse.
Let me say one thing that's kind of cool is that two of the three were both from Pleasant Grove, and then the other one was way hella far away. I think that's an interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Eternal Posses. What area are they from, and do you know how that crew was formed and who came up with the name?
Who you asking about?
Eternal Posse.
I couldn't chime on that because.
What was the question?
He was asking about Eternal Posse.
Who the members are?
Yeah. Do y'all know anyone?
Well, there was Antonio, then the white boy, Wedo with the red hair. Yeah. There was.
Was it Ryan? Right, Ryan.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, Wedo.
Man, that's Ryan. Yeah. Ryan is the white boy. The white cat, and he got the red hair and stuff.
We called him. No. We had a nickname for him because he had the ugliest windmill. I'm sorry, Wedo, but yeah, you did. He was a windmill, but his leg was always like this.
He was doing the corkscrew windmill. They call that quote unquote.
Yeah.
Hey man, but I got something to say about the things that were going on back in the early 90s, the practice spots.
Okay, before we get to that, let's talk about the first B-Boy battle at Emotions involving Suicide Tribe and Eternal Posse. What do y'all remember about that?
We got robbed. Yeah, because you have to say we're in their territory, so they had the crowd. I mean, it's obvious, but Ralph took it, and in my eyes, Ralph ate him up because he had the cleanest flares, windmills, a couple headspins, and Antonio just had flips and a couple I don't know, a V kick or something.
What battle is that?
The main battle, the $1,000 battle.
January.
The first Emotions.
Because there were two big battles there. There was the early one.
First one.
There was the early one, which is in the back, and then there was the second one, which was more in the front on the stage. And that was the big one. I wasn't at that second one, but everybody in Dallas was there. But that first one with just Suicide Assassins, Eternal Posses, that was in the back, and the checkered floor right there.
Yeah, and that's the first one. Yeah, I didn't even know about the second one. Yeah.
The second one is the one that the video is on YouTube. There's a video on it, and it was debatable when that was. And I called K and went and found out when it was. Okay. It was 96, because some of these cats were claiming that it was like 94 and shit, and they would have been in diapers.
Yeah.
But, so I actually researched that.
Okay. You were saying about the locations here in
practice spots.
The practice spots, facilities.
Yeah. So mid to late 90s, 96, mid to late 96, this is in 96, was when I started hanging out with Hype Crew. And I don't know if I came up with the name or we came up with that name. But that was right. That was right here in Pleasant Grove.
Oh,
Edward, Eddie, do you remember them? Eddie and Edward. There was a skinny Edward that was like good with the girls, and then there was a little bit thicker of an Edward that was kind of like just the character. He was kind of
Ed and Eddie.
Yeah, and then there was an Asian kid, and then there was this kind of big kid. This one big kid. Man, I'm embarrassed. I don't remember his name. But his father was part of Parks and Recreation, and he connected me up with Dallas Police Department for this anti-gang initiative to start 5 b-boy practices around Dallas. So there was North Dallas. There was amongst those 5 was the ROC. So I established the ROC. That went on for 21 years, which is pretty good, and people don't know that it was me that started that. So there were 5 practices. There was after school at Spruce, Skyline, Jefferson. There was one in North Dallas. I don't remember the name of that spot. And then the ROC. So that was mid to late 96 was when those practices began. And it was also that time that right around the end of 96, end of 97 was when all these crews started sprouting up everywhere.
14 to 18 years old. This is ages ago. So anywhere I could ride my bike or walk to, because sometimes a vehicle was not available. Yeah. Sometimes Idlewood would drop me off or whatnot.
Are we the same age?
Dude, I'm 1980, man. I'm 44. About to be 45.
Okay, I'm about 10 years older than you. I'm 46.
Yeah.
Okay, I know Oak Cliff had some dope crews. One of the crews in mind that came out of Oak Cliff was DTR, Down the Rock, and that came out of Sunset, if I'm not mistaken. Who are some of the members from Down the Rock?
Rudy.
Paul,
Danny.
Are we talking about
Is
new
it
generation?
Danny Boy?
You talking about new generation?
In
general?
I guess in general, Down the Rock. Checo.
Oh, Checo was in DT?
Yeah.
He was, yeah.
Oh, really? I had no idea.
Yeah.
Shout outs to Checo.
Yeah, dude. He's the one combining all like Oak Cliff. Period. If you mentioned Oak Cliff, you had to mention Down the Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Rock Force. There we go. He combined Rock Force and Down the Rock, and that's what he came up with. Rock Solid. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like at the Oak Cliff, we used to go out there and practice too, in the back of Rudy Lada's house, and yeah, just go out there and practice wherever we go find a practice spot. Yeah.
Okay, did y'all have any interactions with DTR, or do y'all have any memories battling that crew, if y'all battled at all?
Dude, I was in love with a girl who was from the original Down the Rock crew in the 80s in Dallas.
I was in love with Rudy.
Ileana.
I was in love.
Did you ever meet her?
Yeah.
She was 10 years older than me. She taught me a lot about hip hop.
And you're confessing your love.
Dude, I was so in love.
I was in love with Rudy.
To this day. Rudy's booty. Is it?
Okay, Drew, tell us about Hype Crew. Who were some of the members of Hype Crew, and how did you form Hype?
Well, there was, I pretty much said it already. Eddie was a skinny, Latin, light skin. He could pass for white, but he was Latin kid. He was real good with girls. And then the other Eddie was a little bit thicker, had a buzz head cut. He was kind of a knucklehead, but he was cool. I mean, I say that in a good way. He was just a character. Then there was it's like Filipino kid, Dave, something like that. And then this big kid, this bigger kid who he tried to break, but
I think
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. If I see,
and it was right around
names,
it was right around Bruton and Masters area. Those guys were living. And yeah, dude, we got pulled over by the cops one time, and some crazy shit happened. I was taking all the kids home after a practice, and the cops pulled us over.
What are you doing with all these kids? That's why Drew can't live within 200 yards of a school.
I was like, the sergeant already knows this is going on. He's part of it. He's him and Puff Daddy.
Okay, what was Hype's biggest rivalries back then?
Man, these guys, they were on the sidelines. They weren't really out there battling. They were just, basically just loved to dance, and we'd get together and go to their houses, and they'd come to mine, we'd just practice. We would go out to, like quinceañeras and Bronco Bowl and stuff.
Oh shit, yeah,
But
Bronco Bowl.
There was a point where I stopped kicking it with them, though, and I basically roamed around Dallas, all the different parts, just whoever was breaking, and there was all these.
The Lone Ranger.
Dude, I came across like so many groups of kids that all lived in the same house, no parents in the house. Their parents owned the house but lived in Mexico. You know, the older sister is basically there, and these were these crews. They just lived there. There was food. We had shelter. We were just breaking, and we didn't worry about shit. And
no adult supervision.
I would go from one group. I was the adult basically, so I was always a responsible, moral. So I looked out for everybody, and I think they appreciated that. And I would just basically stay with the crew for a few months, and then meet some other group at an event, and then just kick it with them. Went on these adventures. My whole life in Dallas is big hip hop.
You just never know what you're going to get.
Circus and shit. It was fun. It was fun. But I started kicking it with the IC guys. When I met was it Vu? I met Vi, Marca's girlfriend.
Yeah, Marca.
Victor's girlfriend. I met her at an event.
27.
At an event. Did I know Suchai then before?
Suchai.
Anyways, I was homeless. I was just roaming around. And she had a place, and she was like, "Oh yeah, my boyfriend's from IC Crew." She was kind of bragging a little bit, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And so I was staying with her, and turned out Marca was his. And then I kicked it with Marca, and then Marca and I ended up. I was living with Marca for a while, and then Suchai I lived with a long time.
Yeah.
It was Suchai is an OG graffiti artist from Infinity Crew, but I have a question for you. Was he ever an IC breaker?
Because he's a homie. He was grabbed before b-boying, but if he wanted to fucking get down,
him and I were b-boying. Him and I, like, we went places and we're breaking together. He was a b-boy. We were breaking in circles. We were breaking in circles at Dread Nairi, where the little kids couldn't get into. These were the older head nightclubs. But
he got down, but I wouldn't say like if he. I mean, he's already in IC. So
he doesn't claim. He doesn't. He told me that he wasn't in Infinity Crew. That y'all never put him down in it. And I think that was it shouldn't even be a question.
He's OG IC already.
So whether y'all inducted him in or not, he is in fact an OG IC b-boy.
Yeah, I wouldn't deny him that. Like, if you wanted to run and claim, as myself, I feel bad. I don't claim IC a writer. I claim IC b-boy. So whenever I do, because I still draw and do people's names and this and that. I still fucking get down on the wall, because they get down. But I would never claim, like, oh, just because I'm a b-boy from IC, I'm gonna claim myself IC. I don't claim myself IC.
Dude, I was kicking it. I was living with IC, kicking it with them daily for like 4 years. They never put me down, but yeah, whatever.
Okay, let's talk about Illusions Crew. Who started Illusions Crew? Was that Curious George?
What year was that?
See, that's where, like, it's good. I mean, I can't speak on that because, like I said, all these branches that eventually come from, that they have their own.
It was 97. It was after 97. I don't know if it was 97, 98, but it was after 97. I left 2001, so anything after 2001, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Okay, how did y'all meet George? Curious George.
Well, I met him at the battle at Emotions.
Tell us about that.
I met him at the battle at Emotions, and so when I say that there were members of Suicide that have a chip on their shoulder for me to this day, there's a few of them who are from Suicide. Suicide. George.
Oh no,
George was never a Suicide.
He was Assassins. Yeah. He was Assassins or Illusions before he was United. Yeah. So I know he was in one of those crews. I don't remember which one.
Yeah, because Suicide never was a part of United B-Boys.
No, this is before United B-Boys. I'm talking about when Suicide and Eternal Posse, some of those members combined to become United B-Boys. and that was end of '96, the last half of '96. That was still before '97. Well, there were cats. Damn, I don't want to name names, but there were like 3 cats who still have a chip on their shoulder from
Name their
to
names.
this day.
Throw their names out there.
Nah, I don't know.
Well, what's the
I don't
point,
think that's
man?
right. I don't think that's right. That was a long
Yeah.
time ago, but it was interesting because United B-Boys are the holders of the history of hip hop here in Dallas, and I've been erased from the history here, and in that void, they're giving IC credit for introducing the elements of hip hop culture to all these little kids. When it was this video,
Well, that's the thing.
It was
With
my
that-
videos.
there
And hold on,
wouldn't be-
let me finish.
Yeah.
All right, it was this video that circulated Greater Dallas before all those little kids knew that IC existed. There were, I was slanging graffiti magazines early '96 when I got here. And then in the second to last half of '96, we started those 5 after-school programs with the ROC in them. So the graffiti magazines circulating throughout Dallas, Fort Worth, and these B-boy videos, these were the first videos that circulated Dallas. All your generation, this was probably their first video other than like Beat Street, and stuff.
Yep.
But that's what introduced the history or the other elements of hip hop to the kids that were just into breaking. And now that's when hip hop exploded. And then Fresh as Kids came out. And that, was the history of B-boy. And then later in later '97, did IC Crew start to connect with the younger generation. You were one of the few that were lucky to have access to true hip hop in that generation of people, that lineage of B-boys.
The thing is this, when it comes to taking credit for this, taking credit for that, me myself, I'm speaking for myself. I didn't do it to get credit. I grew up idolizing my older brother and what he was doing, what culture he was in. I'm like, I want to be part of. I want to be a part of it, and I didn't give 2 shits about credit or my So.
The OG.
Yeah, so and that was like
I don't care about credit. I care about truth.
Yeah.
And when I came back in 2001, I left in 2001 to Seattle. I came back 2021, so exactly 20 years. And when I got back here, my first question was about, what do you know about the history of hip hop in Dallas? And hearing everybody's explanation of it was, and then there were a couple of documentaries out, and I was hearing that, and that's not really how it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't my documentary.
And also, and the other thing is, anybody in the scene right now, except for Bilal, can tell you what happened before '95. The history of hip hop in Dallas before '95. Because the current hip hop scene is based on the youth generation that spontaneously combusted independently and later found the other elements of hip hop.
Okay. So at this time, a few crews started to break up and form new crews. So what was the transition from Suicide to GC Rocks or Gulf Coast Rockers, and who was down with that crew?
Gulf Coast was PG, Oak Cliff, some artists. That was a melting pot of, if you were in the scene and you're a homie, either practiced at one of our spots and you're pretty much in. We did it for the love of the culture. We didn't do it, and in that was when we first officially made jerseys, and then of course Rocksteady was everything. So we did the jerseys with the name on our backs and
down on the bottom.
Oh, it's so sick. Yeah, dude. So back then, that was when we started having little jobs here and there. We were able to afford to go out of town, and we'd probably get eaten up by any crew in Houston that we used to go in, because there were years ahead of us.
Well, their lineage was passed down from the 80s. Yeah. So they had that history, whereas the youth from '95, '96,
like
I said, it was spontaneous.
Yeah, it was when it comes to GC Rocks, it was Rudy, Ram, all Oak Cliff heads, and anybody wanted to fucking get down.
I was wondering about that because I heard about GC Rockers, but I didn't know exactly who was in it.
Mike Diaz.
It sounded like there was a lot of people in it.
He went by Gez, GZ. Remember GZ? Jez, Gez. So yeah, dude, it was between here in PG, to this day, Suicide and then another branch which is GC Rocks.
was just more people, more of the homies, and the more the merrier. And like we had like 3-4 cars full of b-boys to either go practice or go out of town and battle people in Houston and this and then come back and just keep practicing. But it was so many. It was so many.
Okay.
The younger crowd.
Did you ever, or did y'all ever battle Fury's crew? And do you have any memories from that battle? If so,
Possibly at the ROC, because Furious was there every week. Kimbo.
I've never battled any.
Nemo, and was he?
Nemo was GC Rocks.
And
yeah,
there was a lot of GC Rocks at ROC.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, yeah, Nemo was he started with Assassins with Daniel and Ralph. Yeah, he was supposed to be here.
Nemo. And
yeah,
then his little brother.
okay, IC B-Boys was formed what year, and why was the reason that y'all changed the name again?
Who?
IC B-Boys?
When did we change what?
From GC Rockers to IC B-Boys.
Well, it's not that we changed, it's that I felt that IC needed to, like, I talked to Howard and my brother and all the, like, old Sergio, Ukron, all the homies that, like, hey, do y'all mind if I step in and not take over, but just make a B-Boys section of IC? I was like, yeah, chapter. And they're like, yeah, go ahead. And so that's what I was like, it sounds kind of crappy to say, oh, I nitpicked, because eventually.
Cherry pick.
Yeah, cherry pick of like who you wanted to be.
I want you.
But that's what,
man, you want to be champions.
Yeah, exactly.
Not everybody can be a winner.
Exactly.
Those who show that they want it.
Exactly. I picked the guys that had just the love for the culture. 2, they wanted to be. They were dedicated, and as far as like Ram, me and Ram just practice in this house in Oak Cliff for like just and do routines and just we're more into groundwork style. Before everybody was about power. To this day it was all power. And I'm like, no, we wanted to of course get down with the the musicality of it and the styles and just groove. And that's why I like nitpick people that were on that same on the same level. And still, of course, we still needed power. When Rudy came in with the headspins, and but I mean, yeah.
Dallas, in terms of power moves, when I got here in December of '95, and then January of '96 was when Emotions opened up. Kids, like I said, there was only 3 cats that can do like one of those burden hand windmills, and the kids didn't really have anything else, and these videos that circulated in a span of 6 months, these kids went from not knowing anything to getting on the map, getting noticed by other cities about the power moves. These kids had flares, windmills within 2 to 3 months, and they were killing it. And it was all power. Later Jive Turkeys came, and they were more of the style heads. Right. And I appreciated them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, I didn't really hear about UMB until like 99, 2000, and that's because I remember Cosmo, he was in B-Boy All-Stars, and he had just battled Curious George in slow mo to get into UMB. So when did United B-Boys actually come into the picture? Because I heard that they went to Houston and they linked up with some guys from Houston and formed a collective.
Right. From my end, I know for sure. Guess Mike Diaz. He was our homie that had family. Remember that? Yeah. He was the one that had the connection to Houston, and so I know he bumped into Nightcrawler and all them, because that's like the beginning of the Elements. Yep. Scribe.
The event you're talking about, was that in Houston?
Houston, yeah.
When United B-Boys here battled United B-Boys there to battle for the name, and they ended up just combining.
Yeah. So the United's out of Houston, right? So, and in pretty much Mike Diaz is the one that wanted their chapter or started United here, and so that's pretty much.
Well, the United B-Boys here formed independently. They didn't know about the United B-Boys in Houston. until later they found out.
Oh, yeah, they did because of Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, later they found out, so they went to battle them for the name, and then that's when they combined forces.
Yeah.
That was back when Havoc and Koro were two different crews.
Yeah.
So you were asking about the origin, like what year,
Yes.
and you heard of them in '99.
Yes.
They were at the Elements Jam. They brought Nightcrawler to battle me, but he ended up battling Daylight at that event. So they were United B-Boys, and I think this was '97 or '98. I have it on here. I just gotta pull it up. I thought it was '97. It could have been '98.
I think that's 97's Elements Jam.
Just
that was
describe characters.
wasn't that in Deep Ellum, which is located here?
That was at the Virago. And Atmosphere, Slug, Abilities, Daylight came out. We got them a hotel, but they ended up staying with us at Jesse's pad. Well, we called him Dan back then.
All right.
Let me see.
Yeah.
So are we still on this, or?
I'm looking at the date on this.
So on what? United?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, man, it kind of sucks to chime in on when we have the wrong
information.
Yeah, wrong info. But as far as I know for sure, Mike Diaz he was that branch to go to Houston, and he knew a couple of the guys, but like Drew was saying, that it was an independently united. So I don't know if they already had some communicate that's all on Mike. I know for sure that was on Mike, and then after that it just blew up once George and Louis got in the picture, and they were just dude, and they're off the blood.
I thought George and Louis were part of Suicide.
No, never.
Okay, so that was
never.
No.
So no, that would have been the first January of that first battle at Emotions when it was in the back. So I don't know who I was battling, but Assassins was pushing me out, and I was battling them, and that's when I met George and Checo and all of them. So maybe it was them that I battled and thought that it was Suicide because everybody, I didn't know anybody back then. I just knew.
Yes,
because I was actually
Severio, they pushed me
the
out.
thing with Dallas, they always come from somewhere before before the popular crew or whatever.
Because I was talking
Louis,
to Noel, who is a Dallas Mavericks breakdancer, and he was telling me, because I was telling him a story.
Oh, those guys don't count.
Yeah.
Their skills.
And so he was telling me
that
he was telling me that Suicide had joined United, and I was like, nah, I don't think they ever got along, Nah. So thanks that I can.
Nah, dude. When it comes to rivalry, and then it all depends on who was cool with who that were down to back whoever up.
So this was 3/21 March 21st, '98.
Okay.
And there were definitely United B-Boys that were here.
It might have been 98, 99, because I know I was still at Skyline, and I think you was on your way out, right?
I graduated in '98.
Yeah. So I was a freshman and he was a senior, and I remember
Classic.
Okay, around that time, a lot of crews started popping up in the Grove. I know there was Eternal Image and HAZE Breaking Crew, which I'm gonna mention my crew, HAZE Breaking Crew. So HAZE actually got started, because I seen Eric Hayes, who's a graffiti artist, and I liked his logo, and so I think the biggest battle we had was. Yes, I did. I did. The biggest battle we had was at Umphress Park, and it was HAZE versus Eternal Image. And I remember it was they had way more people than us, and I ended up bringing Cosmo there to help us battle. So it was 4 people against their 7 people, and I remember Efren brought you, and I was kind of disappointed. I was like, damn, how's my idol gonna battle against me, And so, it was, I don't even think it was, I don't even think it was a full battle, because we end up leaving there and going to Hawthorne. I don't know if you remember, because because they was closing, and so I think Cosmo got in contact with Curious George, because I know George showed up, you know, and I know you called somebody, and it ended up like being like IC B-Boys versus United B-Boys, but I don't know if y'all actually like end up battling. Did y'all have time to battle, or did the school close?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
I don't remember.
But you remember the event though, right?
Yeah. I've slept since then and gained 20 pounds.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Is there anything left that y'all want to discuss before we end this video that we might have left out? The history of.
It's a lot of history, man. There's a lot of pieces. This is like a huge ass puzzle. But when it comes to Dallas, and you're gonna bump into the same homies, you know, to this day, because I still follow. And then a lot of b-boys turn into DJs. A lot of DJs turn into, you know. So the majority of the homies I still kick it with, they're DJs and still on the scene. Bilal, Mike Mutamore, he was in the United. So just still being here and saying my piece. Even though I wasn't part of the We From Dallas, my you know, it was more Oliver was on it, and that's cool. But when, you know, there's always waves, you know, and it is what it did. Like Skip, they went from the box, you know, the OG one, you know, back in the day, and then skipped our wave and went straight to where, straight to what is
I know.
the popular, you know, I didn't drive turkeys.
Yeah,
and they
bro.
skipped like, well, what the fuck?
They skipped
I
all
think,
of the 90s.
I believe Dallas has one of the greatest hip hop histories of all the cities because there's so many lineages. I would like to say something about Paflo. Paflo comes from an absolute separate lineage from Dallas's entire scene because he was mentored by another cat. He told me once, and but I don't want to get it wrong. So, but you can interview him about that. But one thing I love about Dallas is there's so many different lineages of hip hop that you know.
And one way or the other, they crossed.
Yeah.
They crossed.
Well, it was this event, the Elements event, that was the first time Marty Kudelka, John Powers, the early '90s dancers in the hip hop scene who became big time choreographer. Marty Kudelka, he's Justin Timberlake's choreographer for like 17 years. Him, Teresa Espinosa, Keely, John Powers, Roger. They in '97 in tandem all left to California, so they completely dropped out of the hip hop scene here, and then that's when the youth took it over. But it was that Elements jam that that was the first time they were under the same roof with United B-Boys and the younger generation B-Boys and the older generation was for the first time under the same roof at the Elements jam.
Okay,
and that was beautiful. That's my crew, by the way, Sidewalk Gypsies, and they came to back me up.
We got 2 more questions. So, what do y'all think about this new open style that's going around in like the hip hop b-boying scene?
Like what do you call it? Open style, freestyle.
All styles.
Yeah, all styles.
All styles.
I mean, hey, that's their own lane. I mean, you can't knock. I'm not knocking no type of outlet. You know, dance is dance.
I got
but,
some issues.
I mean, of course, yeah.
With it, because, well, so you have a few people in Dallas who are really talented in movement, and they just move.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? There's
like
they can
I think
go,
her name is what, Summer Haley or something.
There's
She's really good.
And now, so a lot of the dancers from this generation are regurgitating a lot of the stuff from the 70s and 80s. Those originators, they were like boom, boom, they got it like perfect, you know. And I feel like the current generation they're combining these styles and mixing up the names, and they're not really perfecting one thing before they get the other, and they're just combining it into things. That's cool, but it kind of gets old after a while.
Yeah.
But the issue that I have is these guys take up the whole song and they're not even really killing it. And it's like when another song comes on that's like a badass, like hip hop break, usually it's house and stuff, but when they play a b-boy or a hip hop break, they're in there just kind of doing, you know, they're not even really fully going into it. And so I had to get mad at some dancers. I was like, you know, kill it or be out.
Yeah.
You know, because this, I'm gonna dance over you. This beat, rock him. They just play rock him.
Do you feel
and they're
trying to do a whole routine to the whole 3-minute song?
They just take up the whole circle, the whole song. You know, and it's one thing if you're killing it. It's another thing.
Well, that's when you come in with the flare and kick the shit out of the shit.
Okay, last thing. Okay, I do this one. All of my interviews, I give a top 5. So I'm gonna start. Who is my top 5, or who are your top 5 b-boys from Dallas? I'm gonna stop first. So I'm gonna have b-boy Drew the Barbarian, Kaos, no question. Cosmo, Kimbo, and for that 5th one, I'm gonna have to go with Danny Boy from Down the Rock. Okay, you Rick, who would your top 5 Dallas all time be?
Dallas, Drew's got to be up there. No specific order. Noodles, Nelson, Ralph Garcia. What did he go by? I forgot what name, but everybody called him Ralph. So, yeah.
Yeah, B-boy Ralph.
Yeah,
I remember him, but I don't remember the name.
Yeah. 2 more. Ram, my boy Ram. Just because we're like on the same level as far as like style. Jeez. Power. Jeez. Can't remember the last one.
Well, we'll come back to you.
Come back to me. I'll think of one.
Drew, what about you? Your top
I have a
5
few.
b-boys
I have a few.
from Dallas all time.
Well, I think Curious George is definitely on my list.
Okay.
And Lil Paul, I kicked it with him for a while. There's a few kids from the older hip hop scene.
You got 3 more.
Okay.
He said Dallas, so hey.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're talking about that lineage.
Yeah.
Just Dallas.
Pablo's on that map.
Okay.
Let me see.
2 more.
I'm just going through the whole history in my mind and
Yeah.
all the kids that Kimbo. Did I say Kimbo yet? Kimbo's
No.
definitely on there. Kimbo. And I particularly like Nemesis' style.
So Nemesis would be your 5th one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Caesar?
so. He was a DJ too.
Yeah, Caesar. Yeah.
He was cool.
I'm put George up there, man. George. I mean, for what he did for Dallas, I mean, you can't
I love
knock
that guy.
it. Yeah.
I don't know if he likes me or not, but
You can't knock that.
Shout out to Curious
he was
George.
Cool
Yeah, man.
and he
Yeah.
fucking broke records in Dallas.
No, he's a beast, dude. Hey, you gotta give him his flowers. Hey.
And I apologize if I got any of the history wrong. I'm just telling it as I heard it from other people and as I experienced
Oh yeah, there's
it.
always gonna be. Yeah.
So, like Hype Crew was the one that was telling me that members of Suicide and Eternal Posse had joined forces to become United B-Boys. So they may have had bad information too. I'm just relaying what was going on at that time, how I experienced it. Some things I was directly there. Some things I was hanging out with people and they would tell me histories and stuff.
Hey, you remember how I got out of b-boying and started doing graph?
You broke a hip.
No, I don't know if you remember, but I actually got the nerve to battle you at your house. You remember? It was me, you, Ben, and your brother Nando. And and I was like, yeah, man, I think I'm good enough to battle you now, right? Mm-hmm. So I come out and I do my routine, and I'm thinking that shit is fly. Mm-hmm. And next thing you do like a flare to windmills to like crickets to wheels of steel.
I can't steal the frijoles, mom. I gotta battle this kid real quick.
And that day, I instantly quit b-boying and became a legendary graph writer.
Gave him your.
Well, I'm honored.
You gave him your shirt.
So you
Take my
retired.
Adidas. Take my Adidas.
You retired
I'm gonna
me,
stick with
bro.
my can.
All right, Drew, Chaos, peace.
Big love. Word up to that. Big up.